I had an idea to start the program, and now I'm changing it. Because I think you need to hear this. So my name is Connie Taylor. I'm the president with the League of Women Voters here in Johnson County, and I'm thrilled to see so many people here. In case you guys haven't heard, well, last month I gave you an update on our lawsuit, right? And I thought, well, we're not going to hear anything till later in June. Well, I lied. We heard yesterday. You ready for the ruling, the opinion? I have good news and bad news. Do you want the good news first or the bad news first? I'll tell you. So there were two lawsuits. One about representation of voter assistance. That was the giving the appearance of being an election worker. Okay, that was from 2021. So the good news is the court ruled in our favor, and they directed. But wait, there's more. But wait, there's more. They directed the lower district court to reconsider the claims against the provision, and quoting Martha Pint, the false representation provision is likely unconstitutional. So we go back to district court. When? I don't know. How long will that process take? I have no idea. The second one is related to, the second and third are related to absentee ballots. And this was a different lawsuit. So the signature verification requirements for absentee ballots, we had argued that the signature requirements were unreliable and burdensome to voters, similar to what other states are saying. So the Kansas Supreme Court ruled in our favor and remanded that provision back to the district court, giving instructions that they needed additional standards to apply to the signature verification process. So we won. There's more. Again, when does this happen? When do they go back to district court? I have no idea. We could probably play bingo, and whoever wins gets a prize. Pick a square. How long that process takes, I have no idea. Your guess is as good as mine. So there's no right to a speedy trial like you get in a criminal case. The third issue that we had, which was related to the signature requirements for absentee ballots. This is, again, the law from 2021 that limits the number of ballots that a person can deliver to 10. And here's the bad news. The court allowed that ruling. The court allowed that law to stand. So we're back to court on the representation issue and the signature verification issue. So stay tuned. If you would like to read the LWVK response along with Loud Light and Kansas Appleseed, and I think there's another organization that was part of the lawsuit, please check out lwv.org, click on Newsroom, and scroll down to Statements and Press Releases, and the headline is Civic Groups Respond to Kansas Supreme Court Ruling on Controversial Voting Laws. So I see Diana will get some information on the next issue of The Voter that you can have all that information. along with, there's an article from the Kansas Reflector that kind of takes a little bit, this is basically the same thing. So, that's that. So now, I'd like you to do a couple different things. I'd like for you to look at your neighbor, just check out your surroundings, see who your neighbors are. And if you have a friend that's across the room, will you check to see that your friends are here? Maybe recognize one or two people. Now I want you to check out where the exits are. There's one here. I feel like an airline stewardess, flight attendant. There's one back here, two over here. In the case of a fire, we are meeting out at the green space area between Flum and the parking area. Just head out there. I think the fastest way is this way, okay? Please exit in a calm, quiet, please exit in a calm and quiet, orderly fashion and listen for directions from the board. Okay? Same thing with a tornado. I looked for the tornado shelter and there's no real sign that says tornado shelter. Really, it's that way. Follow him. No. There's a tornado shelter that way, but, you know, bathrooms, interior building, interior rooms with no windows, no skylights, those are probably the safest place to be. The restrooms are right out here. There's some right here. There's some right here. There's one that's around the corner here. Again, please exit in a calm, orderly, quiet fashion so that we can give direction, the board can give you directions on where to go and what's going on. The good news is we're not going to have a fire drill because we're not going to have a tornado drill. Just know where those things are, okay? And if you know somebody that has mobility issues, please assist them in getting to those safe and secure locations. Now, if there is an active shooter, we will give you instructions on that. That's not going to be recorded so that people can't say, oh, there's an active shooter. They're going to go hide here. We'll fill you in on that at a separate time, okay? Now, I just wanted to thank Smooch for giving us their safety and security procedures because we've copied them so that you all could be safe. And speaking of Smooch, thank you again for your donations to the food pantry. We received a thank you card from them. They indicated they served 95 households, 95. And they are very appreciative of your generosity to meet the needs of those 95 households. So thank you. So, in case you didn't know, the League is a grassroots nonprofit organization grounded in our nonpartisan policy, meaning we neither support or oppose a candidate or a political party at any level of government. This protects our 501c3 status. We remain committed to viewing our work through a DEI lens and our mission to defend democracy and to empower voters. we continue our efforts to engage and educate voters on upcoming elections and public policy through programs like these. While we aren't partisan, we are political. And our league has been actively involved in federal, state, and local government public policy for more than 71 years, as evidenced by our longstanding position statements. And one of those was we advocated for the construction of the new county courthouse. And speaking of our local position statements, one of the items from our annual meeting was to review our outdated position statements. And I know that I've mentioned we're not going to wait till April to celebrate volunteers. We're going to do that periodically throughout the year. So I want to give a shout out to a couple people instrumental in reviewing our local position statements. Aline Van Bepper. Aline, are you here? She has been hard at work for more than a year reviewing our local handbook that was last updated. Anybody want to guess? (2019). I have things older than 2019, but that's beside the point. So check out page 32 of the digital copy of our annual report to find out what she's been doing. And that annual report is available at our website at www.lwvjoco.org. So I want to actually tell you what's next. Immediately following this meeting, Anita Kaiser. Anita, are you here? Danielle Keller in the back, and our secretary, Harry Bognich. They are going to, we're going to work on the next phase of this project. They're going to identify current or standing statements and to identify those statements that need to be archived, such as the one for the construction of the new courthouse. So, thank you for taking on this special project. Is Malia here? I don't see her. Raquel, do you know what happened in May? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So Malia was telling me about the fabulous work that they did in voter registration, the youth engagement, the award that we were received from LWVUS. I think the number was 65 from St. Andrews. Does that sound about? St. Thomas Aquinas. So that's remarkable. And the other thing that I think is fascinating is working with the Shawnee Mission School District to have a voter registration contest between the schools in Shawnee Mission School District. And we're going to kind of be in the background supporting that effort. But wouldn't that be fabulous if we could do that across the entire county? So we have been blocked in some school districts because they view some of the things that we've done previously as being partisan, and they're getting complaints. So if you're in that school district, please reach out to the principals and say, hey, Shawnee Mission is doing this. We'd love it if you guys would partner with Shawnee Mission and have a similar contest. And we'll just be in the background. Shawnee Mission is doing something that's student-led. That's what they're doing. And I think it's going to be a fabulous way to engage our youth, to register to vote and then be informed of the election process. So the next thing I want to talk to you about, Kathleen, wave Kathleen. Yeah, you do. And Connie Hernandez. I met with them. Connie, please raise your hand. Connies are taking over the world. Sorry, it's a Connie joke. It's a Connie joke. I met with Connie and Kathleen this past week as part of the leadership listening tour, and they had some great ideas and some well-rounded thoughts, and I'm going to take those to our board. So thank you both for being there and for the great conversation that we had. So be sure to check out our website, www.lwvjoco.org, for more information on the next one. The next one coming up is June 20th. So it's at Monticello Library. So remember back in January, so long ago, we asked you, our members, to rank the top programs you wanted to learn more about. And this morning's program, Combating Mis and Disinformation in the Political Arena, ranked in the top 5. So what's the impact of mis or disinformation in our democratic, small d, society? A democratic society based on active participation in government. After all, our government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. And after all, if citizens hear mis or disinformation about issues that are important to them, it likely decreases their chances of voting, especially if it's about something that's related to their interest, like housing, homelessness, Medicare. Our public policy, such as voting rights, can be rooted in misinformation, such as widespread election fraud. Mis and disinformation creates distrust in our democratic institutions, our governing bodies, our public safety, free and fair elections, even whether the judicial branch is fair. And I wrote this before the Supreme Court ruling. False narratives on issues, as well as political campaigns, continue to further divide our country. And mis and disinformation is a threat to our constitutional republic form of democracy. So after the presentation, we will take questions from you. And each of you should have a index card. Write your question, make sure it's legible, because if we can't read it, we can't ask it. And lift it up so it can be collected and presented to our moderator. So we'll conclude this morning with our league announcements. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our dynamic duo. It's a joke. I call them dynamic duo, but we laugh at it, but they are fabulous. They are hardworking getting these programs set up. Patty Dykeman and Karin Sorensen. Now, today's discussion is just in time as we head into this year's election cycle. So, Karin, take it away.
Well, good morning, everyone, and happy June. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing our two panelists and moderator. C.J. Janovi is the Director of Journalism Content at KCUR, Kansas City's NPR affiliate. She has 3 decades of journalism and leadership experience in Kansas City, including roles in digital managing editor and arts reporter at KCUR, editor of The Pitch, and founding opinion editor at the Kansas Reflector. Betsy Webster came to KCTV5 News in 1999 and currently reports for KCTV5 News at 10 p.m. She has a BA from Wellesley College and an MS from the University of Missouri School of Journalism. Betsy grew up in the Philadelphia area. Her college professor father instilled in her a passion for research and writing. Her German immigrant mother shared childhood stories of living through air raids that taught her to have empathy and not take anything for granted. The most rewarding part of her job has been meeting people whose resilience in the face of difficult circumstances has taught her unforgettable lessons. Darren Story, our moderator, is a lifetime resident of the Kansas City area. He has worked for organizations like Reconciliation Services, OK Program, the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, and the American Jazz Museum. He has also served on the boards of Heartland Chamber Music and Habitat for Humanity. In 2021, Darren moved into the political arena with his campaign to become city councilman for Kansas City, Missouri's 3rd District at large. He is currently appointed to Kansas City's PIAC Commission for his home's 3rd District and is also in the Municipal Arts Council. Darren's full-time work is pastor at Westminster Presbyterian Church in Ottawa, Kansas. And on top of that, he's also a radio personality for Cumulus Media, hosting 2 shows, Sunday Inspirations and Caring for KC. So, who's looking forward to a lively conversation? Woo. I know I am. If by chance you think of a question you'd like answered, please fill out the index card on your seat and raise your hand when completed so we can gather them. Darren, take it away.
started talking about the truth sandwich. So in order to debunk this false information, we have to say, they figured it out. Is my mic on? You guys hear me okay? Okay. So the truth sandwich is the reporting tactic that says, that repeats the information twice, but also informs you what the false information is. So the truth sandwich is fact, incorrect information, fact. So in this case, a person arrested at the Chiefs parade is being falsely accused of being an illegal immigrant. Missouri lawmakers are saying Denton Loudermilk was a illegal immigrant who was shooting at the Chiefs parade. That information is false. He was arrested for intoxication and he's a legal resident. I don't know if those are the actual facts, but that's the example. That's the structure of a truth sandwich in reporting.
Truth sandwich. I like that. So for some of us that might not be familiar with journalism as a vocation, the art of journalism, how do you, I'll start with you, Betsy, how do you evaluate your sources of information? How do you find out if they're credible or not?
Well, I mean, first, I always, when I get a tip, ask myself, okay, what does this person have to gain? That kind of gets my skepticism going, or as we sometimes say, my BS detector. So,
Can we swear? No,
you can, I'm not allowed to. I mean, I do in my private time, but, this is an official event. So, if it's a voter fraud claim, you go to the election board. You always go to the source, to the document, to the data. And I think it's important, too, that we also need to look for falsehoods of omission. Somebody might call us a lawmaker, or somebody says, this legislation was passed that does this. Okay, it does that, but it also does this. So you read the legislation. You don't, we talk about news releases and stuff. The news release is a starting point, and then you always go to kind of the very source information.
What about you, Steve?
First of all, I think it would help if I actually turned on the microphone. Is this better? No?
Here, stand up. I've done this a million times. Hold on.
Stand by.
Stand by. It says off. Now we're going to switch the button that says on.
Check, 1, 2, 3.
Is your light on?
The light is on, and it says on, and the green light is on. Wait. Yep, the green light is
For those
on.
of you watching on the live stream, we have done this before. Same. All right, CJ.
What's the question?
The question is, for those of us that are not familiar with the art of journalism, how do you evaluate your sources of information?
Betsy summed it up really well. I think, what is the credibility of the source in the first place? Who is this person? What is this organization? What's their agenda? Talking to humans, looking at the documents, you can say this piece of legislation does this, but I'm actually going to go look at the whole legislation on the legislature's website, which is not that hard to do. We can also, I think it's really important for journalists to always talk to the people who are affected by whatever's happening. So there's, the politicians will say one thing about a group of people, but let's go talk to the group of people and get to know them as humans.
I'm freelancing for a second. What you all do is so crucially important nowadays because there's so many sources of information because of the internet. And People become their own journalists. They become their own fact finders. They become their own sources of information. So when I was growing up, we had the Times and the Star, and we had Walter, David, and those guys that would tell you that's the way it is on this date in 1976. And we trusted that. Is there more weight on you all nowadays than to get it right versus be first?
I think,
I'm gonna say no. I don't wanna be first if I don't actually know what I'm reporting.
I think it depends on the news organization, and in our case, even the sort of administration at the time. I always care about not being first. Our current news director says it is important to be right instead of being first. There was a period of time when I had a news director who wanted us to be first and break news, but a lot of times that wasn't on something really complex, right? They wanted us to be first on breaking news at a crime scene. And so you don't report what you don't know, but you go, here I am, here's what I see, I'll let you know when I know something, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's important to write rather than first. And I remember another phrase with writing that someone once told me, it's better to be clear than to be clever. So I don't know if it's more important than it used to be or not, because I've only done this for 25 years. I'm not as old as you are, I think. I'm over 50, but,
So am I.
okay. You mentioned 1975, so I was like, ooh.
Yeah, I was 10 in 1975.
I was 5.
Yeah. Just keeps getting better, Betsy.
I know.
Okay, so what, for non-journalists out here, we're not journalists, we've got to combat mis and disinformation in our own lives, because what we end up doing is we go out there and we get on Facebook and we start talking with our friends, going back and forth, or we have coffee and we do all the things, and we're having these conversations. What are the things that we should be doing as just citizens to combat this from, because we spread it too. If we're not careful, we're spreading these things to our friends. We talk to our friends and they like, really? I didn't know that. And it might not be true. What do you think, CJ? What do we do?
Get off Facebook.
All right, meeting's over.
Okay, go on Facebook to see the steaming pile of trash, and then go talk to humans about what you know. When you're on social media, look twice at the name of the entity that's posting something. If it's like CNN.com, or if it's Kansas City Start, or just something you've never heard of, with a headline or an image that looks too good to be true, or too weird to not click on, don't click. So that's the first thing, just be smart about this. Don't be reactive. And don't share something that's not from a source that you already know and trust, just because you're excited by what it suggests.
I would say things to watch out for, to not share. Just like we say how you can get scammed because you got something that says, do this now or else this will happen. Your account will be disabled if you don't respond now and click this link. Same thing happens with some of the social media posts that are disinformation, right? Fear, panic, a tirade. those are things that you need to kind of be skeptical of. I would also say, try to challenge yourself to not fall prey to confirmation bias. You see something, it fits kind of what your beliefs are in general, you know, okay. Still pause, think, check out, Google something and see if it appears on multiple sources, and then read multiple sources, right? You don't want to limit yourself to one thing. I would also say, and this is kind of a little bit of a cheat because it's easy, but with some of those wild claims you were saying, I like a website, Snopes.com, where I can check the claim. Like on the front page last night when I checked it, I mean, I wasn't checking something in particular, I was just curious what they were talking about. It's sort of the viral claim. And there was something that said, Fox News didn't report on Trump's convictions and instead showed what Taco Bell was removing from their menu. Well, there's a screenshot of Fox News, Taco Bell's removing this from the menu. Well, that was a parody. But you can see how someone who's like, this news organization is problematic would just share that information. And it's actually not true. They did report on it. I don't know if that screenshot was something they reported on like a year ago or if it was just a parody screenshot. But that's the kind of thing where you can always pop in there. And they will evaluate not just is something true or not true. They might say partially true. We were talking about errors of omission. And then they tell you kind of where that information's coming from, citing sources and stuff.
Got some questions for the audience. I'm going to follow up on that. What is the most effective and respectful way to tell someone the information that they're sharing is inaccurate? What have you done in your life, CJ?
I'm not going to talk about my life, but I have a great example from, the Washington Post. This was a couple days ago, and I brought it because it was so striking. This is an opinion piece, an essay there called "What's the Best Way to Fight Viral Disinformation? Look to South Florida." What's happening there is the Latino community in particular is being targeted with false information that's convincing them that open borders and immigration is the nation's #1 security threat. So the point is this information contributes to the perception in immigrant communities that the next wave of migrants poses dangers that their own did not. Okay, so there's a group of people who are engaging with their fellow humans to try to counteract this wave of disinformation. And one of the things, the main leader of this group says, there's actually sort of these folks have anointed themselves to be trusted messengers. So they're people in the community that people know. They have sort of templates to answer questions in English and Spanish using social media vernacular and formats, but also in person. So they have this formula, which is empathize with a concern instead of shaming people or telling them they're wrong. Acknowledge rather than ignore the kernels of truth that make false claims seem convincing. So, for example, these folks heard a rumor circulating that the government had put microchips in the coronavirus vaccine so it could track people. One of these influencers, so the folks decided they recommended that the influencers acknowledge to community members who raised the rumor that it was a scary thought of understandable concern. Okay? They also explained that YouTube videos showed magnets and coins sticking to people's skin because of natural body oils. And they noted that private companies and government agencies can track people using credit card and cell phone data while also explaining what was actually in the vaccine. So at the core of this tactic is respect for fellow humans. And, when you think about a viral rumor, there is often a kernel of truth or something that feels plausible. So, you know, just try and de-escalate the hostility and shame and condescension a little bit.
Very good, very good. I have another question from the audience. I mean, this is for you, Betsy. It says, my social media feed is full of headlines and stories that are labeled satire on various fact-checking sites. It seems like a loophole to push fake news. How do we educate on the danger of this tactic and prevent it?
So you're saying the tactic is to share satire and suggest that it's not satire?
Well, it says here, it's labeled satire on various fact-checking sites. It seems like a loophole to push this stuff out. So it sucks us in, and then, of course, then we share. I don't know who wrote the question, but is
It's called stolen satire. So someone publishes satire, which doesn't match my expectation of satire, and then other sites take away that it's from a satirical source, and they publish it, and it looks like a real headline, like it's a real thing. But when you dig into it on the actual site themselves, it's labeled satire. But that's missing, that context of satire is missing when it's shared ad nauseam.
So I'm not super familiar with that stuff except for like what I was talking about. I'm not familiar with specific sites that try to share satire intentionally to mislead people. When I've seen it, it's just been individual people sharing it. But I don't know. It's a share that gets a share that gets a share. So that's what I look at as who's this person sharing, right? Do I know this person? Do I kind of know what their deal is? Is it a social media influencer? Is this a news site? But I had something, because this came off, I don't have notes on this, because it wasn't a question I know is going to be asked. You said satire and, ask it one more time. What we can do to combat that?
Label satire.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know what I was going to say.
It's still early.
This is not the satire thing. I work until 11 o'clock at night, so sure as heck it's early. Night shift. One of the things that may be kind of a sub-level of that can get confusing, reputable news sites, ours, I think NPR too, you read the story, and then underneath that, you see links to other stories. Look underneath that link and see what that link is, because there will be, some of those are paid advertising links, and they're kind of the clickbait things that you're really like, oh, I really want to see this, but you look and it says viralstories.com. But then like the fourth one is actually a link to a story that we did. So look, does it say kctv5.com? Does it say kcur.org? And, or does it say, you know, viralsatire.com? So that's one thing too that I think can be kind of tricky, but that's the best I can answer that.
All right, thank you. So I have a Star Trek pin right here on my lapel. And so my next question is, with the increasing use of artificial intelligence, what role does AI play, and it's going to continue to play, in mis and disinformation? CJ?
I have no idea.
That's a wonderful answer. We don't know. We can speculate.
I mean, it's already happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what it will do is it will increase the volume, it will increase the speed. And it will, you know, because that's how the technology works. I can, you know, take an article that's a legitimate newspaper article and feed it into ChatGPT, and I can say, make this more appealing to conservatives, and it will feed me a similar article, but with different rhetoric.
Wow.
And that would happen in a matter of 1 second. It would take that long to do that. So, you know, other ways journalists are using AI, like, you know, we could feed the entirety of the Kansas Supreme Court's ruling into ChatGPT yesterday and get a 1-paragraph summary of it again within a second. Those are just two recent examples off the top of my head over how this technology is already working, or could work. So what it means, I think, for this, you know, between now and November, it means the flood of information will only increase, and our responsibility as citizens will also increase to, like Betsy said, read several different sources to confirm whatever it is we think we're being told.
And CJ, I don't know about your organization, and I hope this is the case for, again, we say reputable news organizations, is that we don't use that. Because here's the other thing. You were talking about altering an article or summarizing an article. Not only can something be wrong by omission, missing the context, that's always, like a true journalist, I ask a gajillion questions, and you don't have every answer in that article, but if you don't get everything, you can't distill without possibly making a mistake through assumptions. So context is important. But also, we avoid that for another practical reason, which is that when you type things into AI, a lot of times they cull from other sources. Well, then we could end up with plagiarism. We're using a phrase or a sentence that another organization has used that exact phrase. So that's a concern as well. So hopefully you can trust. Do you use it at all?
No.
The only quote AI I use is there's a transcription program called Otter AI, and it allows me in an interview to transcribe it so I can look through it. But then, of course, when I write it down, I play it back to be sure there aren't any errors.
I mean, that's why I'm saying it's already in use. Like, anytime we run a piece of audio into a language transcriber, that's artificial intelligence. Oh, you know, and you know, it's why I hesitate a tiny bit when I say, are we using it? No. We have
Yeah.
transcription services.
Yeah.
And we're playing with it. You know, would it be wrong for us to take a story that we've written for our website and put it in an artificial intelligence tool and say, summarize this in 2 sentences so I can post it on our social media feeds? What's wrong with that? It saves me 10 minutes.
Well, there's nothing wrong with, I mean, again, we've got a policy against it. There's nothing wrong with, just like with a news release, doing that as a starting point, but don't just populate. You look at that and you go, okay, you know what, actually, I think that those are 2 really good points. Now let me find my way of saying that.
So there's a human involved.
There you go.
That's, you know, and I think news organizations are seeing opportunities to use artificial intelligence in helpful ways. There are laboratories and efforts and you know, a project of the Associated Press that's actually working on this to try and you know, help. So it's not something that we can avoid, and rather than just like trying to keep it at bay, you know, that's why I have some examples to give you guys, because I've been playing with it, because I need to know what I'm dealing with.
Very good. It kind of reminds me of you know, you open up A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And that's kind of what, when I think of AI, it's a tool for us to use. But we have to be careful about having the tool become the medium that we use to get information or how we consume it. So with that said, someone had actually wrote a question in about what do you expect will happen with artificial intelligence. Was that answered through that exchange there? All right, amen, right on. It took me 40 minutes to say amen.
I grew up at Westminster Presbyterian Church in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I wanted to say that.
Thank you. Amen. Fellow Presbyterian here. You may be a recovering Presbyterian, I don't know. We'll talk later. All right, so next question from the audience. When you report, could you share, and this may be, when you report, could you share your investigative process as a model for the folks listening? Example, it gives an example, thank you very much. I guess accused man just not stating fact, but how you arrive at that. Did I say that right for the person that wrote this? That sound like your question? How do you arrive?
This is the fact,
This is the fact.
and this is the misfact, but how did you arrive at the fact?
Okay.
Well, I mean, one of the things is just always asking follow-up questions, which is why my interviews are always so long. Someone says X. What do you mean by that? Well, I mean X. Okay, so where did you get that information? Based on what evidence? Well, it's, I read it somewhere. Okay, so who told you that? Okay, was that someone directly involved? You know, okay, now I'm going to go to the person who supposedly told you that, and I'm going to ask them. I mean, it's just this sort of follow down. I mean, we talk about sometimes there's data, sometimes there's body cam, sometimes there's phone video. Another thing where there's concern about AI, right? How valid is this video? Where does it come from? Let me see it on your phone. Did you shoot that video, or are you showing me something that someone else posted on social? I mean, and for copyright reasons, we don't air a video unless we know that the person sharing it gave it to us. Sorry, you had a follow-up.
That's how do you do it? How do you report it and share that? You just told us, you know, your process.
Right.
How do you educate the public by sharing the process in your reporting?
There's a little bit of process that we do. CJ may be able to answer that more. My regular news stories, and I'm not one of the investigative reporters, but my typical news story is 1.5 minutes long. So sharing the process might be, we went to this person and learned this. In terms of the deep process and the minutia, in my format, I can't do that. I can do it on our web article because I have more space, but so. Does that sort of answer, and maybe CJ has something to weigh in on?
I mean, I'm not sure. So some news organizations have explainers at the bottoms of stories that say, here's how we did this, or biographical information about the reporters that say, here's how I do what I do. We haven't done that yet. We might. But I also think if we're doing our jobs well, the process should be somewhat obvious to the audience. You know, we talked to this person who said this, and it's not that mysterious, you know.
Well, I will say, so I don't do I'm not in the investigative unit. Our investigative reporter is Angie Racono. She did a series of things about Jackson County property taxes, right? And so she did get into the process because she found that a certain number of properties were all valued at the exact same dollar amount, like down to a single dollar. And it was a lot of properties. So what she said, for example, is we looked at all of the Jackson County, we put all of the Jackson County property evaluations from the year of 2023 into a database of, I'm making up a number, I don't know how many people have homes and properties in Jackson County, of 200,000 properties, 5,000 of them were this dollar amount. The only other, any other dollar amount, there were only 10 at the exact same dollar amount. So she gets into the specifics. She's not just saying, hey, there were a lot of properties valued at the same amount. She's going to give all that evidence because it's something that you could say, you could call BS on, so you want to explain it. Some of those things are just way more straightforward. Does that answer better?
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's just we have so many people who don't trust you because you're the press. Or
Okay,
you're
so
from- You're not from my channel.
She's not from your channel?
I'm not, you're not Fox
Oh.
News or you're not whatever.
Oh,
Yeah.
so your question really is rooted in trust, or lack thereof.
How can we build that
Okay.
through the way you report?
So I'm gonna
That is good.
So I'm gonna freelance again. Legacy media. We used to read newspapers. We used to have a channel 4, 5, and 9. We had a favorite evening news, and we normally trusted those sources. And they weren't they were reporting the news, and then we would then figure out how we felt about it, if it aligned with our belief system or if we thought it was factual. Has legacy media truly drifted in even radio, news talk stations or news stations? Where does legacy media fit into the narrative as we consume information? Is it in the rearview mirror?
Would you guys all rather have just 3 sources of news? Like, what's changed since the days of the 3 national news networks? Like, we now have publications that report from all different communities that never got covered back in the day. We have a much deeper and wider understanding of reality and history now than we did back when it was so easy to trust the media. And what I would suggest is that we didn't know what we were missing. What I would also suggest is this idea of not trusting the media is because people don't like sometimes what the media tells them. And it's pretty easy to say, I'm freelancing here.
Sure.
It's pretty easy to say, I don't like what this publication is telling me. I don't trust it. I don't like what those polls are telling me. I'm not going to trust those polls. That's your prerogative. And there are issues. The media often gets it wrong. Guess what? Credible media apologizes and corrects. We're not trying to get it wrong. We're trying to get it right. We're humans. We fail. Social scientists are figuring out how to do accurate polling because they are understanding what they've missed. And technology is changing. The world is changing. We know that people are tuning the news out. That's a real problem for us. We know that people say they distrust the media. Do they distrust the media if we report something great about something they love?
Yeah, like the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl again.
Yeah.
And, just as a follow-up, so we do a story about something that you don't want to believe. We provide the process, all the information. Does that make you more likely to believe it? Or are you entrenched? I mean, because there is a certain amount of the population that I'm sorry, I could put out every single thing I have, the counterpoints, what source we looked at, how long we've been. I don't believe you. Fake news. So what can you do with that? I think at this point we've come to the point where sometimes like there's no amount of what we can do to fix that idea of trusting.
I think we've entered also into an age of our belief systems trump. Oh, God.
I know, you can't use that word anymore as a verb. It's so
Yeah.
messed up.
Supersede, thank you. Supersede what we would probably truth, where it doesn't, truth is not always going to be on our side, right? But it's the truth. So from the audience, speak to the methods individuals can use. Have we answered this question already? You think? The check-in, okay, all right, here's another one from the audience. When lawmakers, et cetera, say false info, what media outlets do they use? Who is checking these media outlets for your own organization for the false info? So when a lawmaker, a politician says that's a lie or that's false, are you guys checking them and where are they getting their information from? Or are they just saying it because it's their narrative? They just want to say it's false. What have you found?
More problematic, what we found is they won't come on our network, where we can put hard questions to them. When they do, there's sort of, there's different methods. So we're typically not going to invite someone on who we don't already have a sense of what they're likely to say, especially a politician. They say the same things over and over.
Right.
So we can have information handy to fact check all the time. Or we can have someone standing by who can have to correct the record. Or we can have the interview, NPR does this a lot, where they'll interview someone and then have a reporter who covers that beat come in and provide context, additional information, whatever's necessary. You can pre-tape the interview if you're, again, if the person will talk to you and you really are afraid that that something will go out over your air that's not true, you can pre-tape the interview and cut that piece. And then I think that is what then leads to sources saying, we're not reliable because they cut out this really important thing I said. And that's a human choice.
Betsy, got anything for that?
I don't.
All right.
I'm looking, and I know you're trying to wrap up at 10:45, so I'm trying to get to as many questions as possible.
Yes, I am. Is there any current legislation that our league members could advocate for to prevent the spread of mis and disinformation in the media? And then a follow-up to that, how can our members communicate their concerns with you all?
CJ, we were talking about this before, about legislation. You had some really good points about sunshine laws.
You all could advocate in favor of changes to the Kansas Sunshine Law that would limit the fees that public agencies can charge for, in response to record requests.
So she couldn't hear you, and I think my mic is either louder or my voice is louder. Legislation that would put a cap on the fees that agencies would charge for Freedom of Information Act requests, in some states referred to as sunshine laws. So if we want to get, the key here again, right? We want to get raw data. We want to get the actual body cam. Well, we ask for that, and sometimes, so those things are stored in digital formats now. They used to charge these exorbitant fees because they said it's a copy charge. Well, you don't have to make copies on the Xerox machine or with your, what did they call the ones that were the ones that were purple and you rolled them? Okay, so I'm old enough to remember that. But I mean, you know, you don't need to print it out on your dot matrix printer and rip those things off the sides. You can send us an XML file. You can send us an Excel file of a database. That doesn't take much time, but oh, it's going to cost you this much money because it's going to take 4 hours of our time to cull that data for you. So that's where and that can be the thing that gets in the way, especially those smaller publications. You talk about trusting, and in some ways anymore, people trust those smaller publications more, and I think sometimes for valid reasons. You've got your local newspaper, what was that one that got raided? Yeah, so you've got this small local newspaper. They have a vested interest in what's happening locally in your community. Those little things that someone in, you know, Topeka doesn't care as much about. And I shouldn't say Topeka because the lawmakers may care a whole heck of a lot about it. Somebody in Garden City, Kansas doesn't care about. So yeah, I mean, you want to, and then they also come up with reasons that we can't have it because it is currently being investigated. It's investigative. What does that mean? Can the legislation spell out what's investigative? Because it's a blanket term that sometimes is legit and sometimes is an excuse.
There is a Gen Zer out there saying, "What's a dot matrix printer?" right now.
Do you know what? I had a Gen Zer as an intern at our station, and I pulled out some of our old tapes that we recorded on. I said, "Do you know what this is?" It's a tape like this big and this thick. And she said, "Is it a floppy disk?" And I said, "It looks nothing like a floppy disk." And she goes, "Well, I've never seen one, but I heard of the name and I know it's something old."
Bless her heart. Yeah. Final question, guys. If there's one thing you'd like our audience to take away, the League of Women Voter members, to know about combating what we've been talking about today, disinformation, misinformation, what's the one thing that you could share with them? Because I think it's important when we have these conversations. I do this in my sermons at my church. My goal is, can I give you one thing that you can take away from here and implement practically in your life? What can we leave these people here today?
Remember at the beginning when the instructions were, if there's a disaster occurring, be calm? That's my takeaway for you guys. There's a disaster occurring. And disinformation is meant to make you afraid and reactive and lose your cool and just stay calm. You guys know the work. You have to do the work. And it's not easy. It's just getting harder, but walk calmly away from the fire.
I like that. I really like that. And what I was thinking is kind of a little version of that, something we touched on a little bit, which is combating also means talking to your friends about it that you think may believe something that's wrong. Don't do it on a social media post. You're not helping anyone. You're just, because you're talking about staying calm, you're like, that's not true. Then somebody's like, why did you say that? I know, I checked your other posts. You're with this bias. And be like, you suck too. You know, that's not helping anyone. And even with a friend, if you are writing something on social media for the friend, nobody likes being called stupid. They get defensive. It damages friendships. Just like with anything else, we always say that like a text message or an email, you can't tell tone, and people misunderstand. So have that conversation. I know most of us grew up that we don't talk about politics, religion, or money. We don't want to do that at a cocktail party with a whole big group of people. that we don't know. But with our friends, I think we've now grown to the point where we can talk about things. But what you were saying, say to your friend, you know, ooh, that's really scary. What do you think about that? And gosh, where did you get that information? You know, I can see how that's scary, but I'm a little skeptical for these reasons. Hey, let's look this up. I'm curious. I'm just really curious to know. Can we look this up? Because I have a friend, it's not the political thing, but she's always sending me stuff about whether your teeth will fall out if you have fluoride in the water or whatever. And those are the conversations we have that way. So, you know, challenge your friends. Because here's the thing. People trust people they know.
Yeah.
You talk about trusted sources. The number one trusted source is someone they know. Their minister.
Yes,
Not their state representative, but
that
their
is true.
minister.
That is true. That's why.
And you're not allowed to talk about politics on the pulpit, I know, but I'm just saying in general, that's an
said that?
example.
I think Jesus was quite political. But,
No, but there are laws about that, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
partisan.
Anyway, let's give it up for CJ and Betsy, everybody. Riveting conversation. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Again, thank you so much to our panel. That was a fascinating discussion. Thanks so much for coming today. Okay, here's a few takeaways, just to kind of recap. We do have to be careful to be sure we are getting our news from a trusted source and be willing to listen to more than one viewpoint to understand. In order to truly combat disinformation, we all have to do our part to be willing to take time to evaluate the topic being discussed or what we are hearing to fully understand what we are hearing and to really look for the truth. Okay, hang tight just a second. So, here's the nuts and bolts part of the announcements that Connie said were coming. So, just bear with me. We will not have another panel discussion meeting until September 14th. That topic is going to be Constitutional Convention, what happens to voting rights. If you're interested to find out what is a Constitutional Convention and why in the heck are we even talking about it, come and find out in September. Now, it is September 14th because of Labor Day holiday. It's not going to, so mark your calendar. Social time as usual begins at 9 that day. Don't forget your non-perishable food. And we appreciate that. Again, another mention about the leadership listening tours. They are all listed on the website, so find out a library close to you and come and be willing to share with the board, executive board, some of your thoughts about what we're doing and where we're headed. Voter information announcements. Stay tuned for upcoming candidate meet and greets ahead of the 2024 general election. Check out, again, it's on the website. I keep giving a plug for the website. That's where you'll get all your information. But there will be a website for dates, times, locations, and candidates that will be participating in those meet and greets. Now, if you are looking, it's summer, we don't have meetings for the next couple months. So if you are looking for a way to fill your Saturdays, there are awesome opportunities to volunteer with the League. We've got some possible opportunities. First of all, voter registration. Malia and Raquel, could you raise your hand? They are going to be meeting Thursday at 9 a.m. at Homer's Coffee Shop. Would love to have you come and join their team to work on that wonderful program that you guys are working on with getting all the, especially the youth registered. So again, they're over there. You can talk to them after the meeting and let them know your interest, or show up at the meeting at Homer's at 9 a.m. on Thursday. And there'll also be a Zoom meeting that night. Membership team. If you're on the membership team, could you raise your hand? There you are. They are also looking for some volunteers. And one of the ways that we can volunteer and engage all of our members, especially it's election season coming up, and we need to get people engaged and busy and people to become members of the League. So we're probably going to do some calling this summer, and if you like to talk on the phone, again, those 2 Saturdays that we don't have meetings, good opportunity to make some phone calls to members in the league. You can also talk to Nancy. She'll be happy to help you with any other opportunities that you might need. Diana, communications. Again, so important to get information out. Communications team is looking for some volunteers to be trained to use the Club Express on our website, which means that would be, you would be helping to produce the newsletter called The Voter and producing e-blasts for our members. They also, I got a message from one of the communication teams, use the social media posts that that the league prepares and has, provide those to share them with your friends, neighbors, so that they can see all the good works that the league is doing. Another membership thing, the book clubs. Again, look at the events calendar on the website. They're happening and very enjoyable. Again, the membership challenge continues. Don't forget to invite friends, neighbors to any of our events. Check out the website for what you can come and join, and keep in mind over the summer, we don't have any formal meetings like this, but we will be hopefully doing some lunch and learns and some small get-togethers just so that we can all keep in touch over the summer. Merchandise in the back, wonderful items available for purchase. Be sure and browse before you leave today. And again, thank you to our wonderful panelists, Betsy, CJ, and Darren. You provided us with so much information that we are actually going to be able to use. So thank you very much. And thank you for sharing your Saturday morning with us. We'll see you soon.